Saville Row?
Well, what happened was that I got on a tube train, found Saville Row, and went looking for a job. Now, the first place that I went to, it was Anthony Sinclair. Now, Anthony Sinclair was a very well-known tailor. He was just around the corner from Saville Row, obliquely opposite Saville Row. And I had seen a sign on his window, and at that time, they would say tailor wanted, or presser wanted, or coat maker, or trouser maker wanted. He had a sign on his window. And I went in response to the sign. They didn't advertise in newspapers or any other social media at that time, of course, but it was just a sign in the window. I went in and asked whether the vacancy was available, and he said yes. And when can you start? I said Monday. And so the following Monday, here I am, ready to start work. I dressed in my suit. He liked the suit I was wearing and the one I had carried.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony Sinclair was Sean Connery's tailor. He was James Bond's tailor. So he was a well-known tailor. And he used to get a lot of coverage and so on. So I started this job at 9 o'clock on this Monday morning. But while I was there, another guy came asking for the same job. The other guy name is Richard Payne. Richard came asked for the same job that I had already started. Richard's white, I have to add. So immediately, about 20 past 9, if that much after 9, I started job at 9. He asked me to leave and gave Richard a job. I hadn't started doing any work yet, so I'd not done any work at Anthony Sinclair. But I'd got the job. We agreed on what he was going to pay me, and which incidentally was £12, and that time was $4.80 a pound, and £10 was $48. So I was earning more or less the same money that in Saville Row that I was earning in Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
I had to work less hours, of course. But Sinclair, having fired me straight away, he was clearly embarrassed by preferring this other guy. He called around his friends, and about 10:30, I got a job at a company called Huntsman's. And so Anthony Sinclair did me a great favor by firing me, because having got another job, that is when I thought, you know what, I've got this job, I'm in the back room, but I wanted to, what I'd heard about Saville Row, the Hollywood stars, the captains of industry, business people. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to design and cut and fit and make suits. I didn't get that opportunity because they would not have anyone that looked like I had bushy hair. I had spoke with an accent that wasn't conducive to being in the front of the shop. It just wasn't working for them. And so I was kept in the back room. And I thought if I wanted to get to the front, I needed to get training in Saville Row style tailoring, cutting and fitting, and I needed to get to get that opportunity. I needed to get to the front of the shop.
What would it be? Coming
from Trinidad, I was not aware of racism. I never knew that was a characteristic in a human being. Racism. I don't think I've ever heard the word racism before, and being so naive, I didn't recognize it as racism. There have been a lot of things that actually happened during my career and my life in England that I could look back and say that was blatant racism. But I didn't recognize it. Even when I got a job at Huntsman, I couldn't go through the front of the shop. When I went through the front of the shop on my first day at work there, they said to me, no, I have to go around to the back of the shop. And so I had to come out of the front, walk along Saville Row, then walk along what is Burlington Street, and walk up Regent Street, then to enter, which is basically no more than 100 yards away from where I was before. I had to enter to the back of the shop because, it's a tradesman entrance. You're not allowed through the front of the shop because customers might see it. It's just, it was what it was. And of course, but being naive, I think a lot helped me a lot because it helped me because if I understood racism at that time, then it would have affected me psychologically. I'm sure it would have affected me psychologically. But I grew through that period without knowing what it was. And so I left, I worked the job at Huntsman's. It was 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and I didn't work on Saturdays, and it was like being on a permanent holiday because I started at 7:20 in the morning on Frederick Street, and I finished about 9 at night, 6 days a week. And now I've got all my evenings, and I've got my Saturdays, and I've got my Sundays there. What the heck do I do? And so I had other jobs. I had a Saturday job, and then I got an evening job. And so I worked 3 jobs, and I saved enough money to go on to full-time college at the University of the Arts, London College of Fashion.
We're going to